Buenos dias, Tom, and thank you for joining us today at Business Spotlight Series. Today, I'm excited to introduce Tom Jeffrey, Director and co-founder of Wave, a fast-growing e-tailer distributor of spas and paddleboards in the UK, USA, and Europe since 2017. Welcome, Tom.
Hello, hi.
Now, Tom, we've been having a chat just before the interview, and I'm just curious to, for you to tell us, how did you end up into this business? How did it happen?
So myself and my business partner, we both specialized in a few market areas. He was very focused on importing from China, finding products in China, and also the sort of the financial side of building, growing, scaling, and long-term exiting a business. From my side, I sort of specialized in fashion and e-commerce, specifically in fashion. I grew and helped support the owner of a business, grew from a couple of 100,000 up to about 30 million in its peak. And then it just got to the point where we felt like, being good friends, we both had skill sets, they complemented each other. We brought them together and we thought, how can we do something that ultimately we can, build a brand, number one, and have some sort of exit strategy long term. And that's ultimately how we met, and that was what our plan is.
Brilliant. And why this industry, spas and paddleboards?
So I think the market's very, very competitive for everything nowadays. So the initial reason that we actually took sort of 6 months finding what the right product would be was because we wanted to make sure we didn't go into too convoluted marketplace. We wanted to go in somewhere where we could go and be a little bit disruptive, where we could really sort of step on competitors' toes, and also a marketplace where it wasn't easy to enter. And Spas kind of ticked all that boxes. And the other thing was, it's a fun product, and both Dan and myself really like products that make people happy, and ultimately should be a relatively easy sell.
Yeah. Do you have one of them in the house?
Oh yeah, I've got multiple ones. My kids love them.
And your friends, I guess, yeah?
Yeah, everyone.
Now, you often hear friends and business or family and business can be quite difficult. Some people become friends through business, and some people are friends and set up a business. How did the dynamic with your business partner go when you were friends and then you go into business? How do you manage that dynamic?
Good question. I'm not going to lie. We've obviously had our ups and downs and our challenges. We're both very passionate individuals. But I think the way that it sort of works is the fact that we kind of know where we're each strong at, and we sort of try not to step on each other's toes. So I would say friends first, very much so, and business partners secondary. Like I say, there has always been, and I think it's healthy, to be passionate about things and to stand up for what you believe in, and hopefully ultimately do what's best for the business. But yeah, I think respecting each other is very, very important. And when you do have those challenges, just working through them, pragmatically. It's just always challenging when you're quite passionate.
Yeah. Well, I guess if people don't disagree on things, why do you need each other? If the two of you think the same, you don't need each other, right? So you want somebody else's point of view. Brilliant. Okay, and what you set up the business before COVID, and then COVID hit. How did that hit your industry?
So it was phenomenal for the industry. I think the biggest challenge for us was the fact that we started Wave, and for 2 years we were also doing our other jobs. It then got to the point where it was consuming so much of our time, evenings, weekends, that we had to take that step, which was, quit the day job, which is always pretty terrifying. The week after we quit the job, our main supplier said that they were then going to work solely with another retailer, which meant that we lost our primary supplier a week after I quit my job. So we jumped on the plane to China to find probably the one only other OEM supplier that could do the spas that we needed. And we basically had a 3 to 4 month period of being in a business where we could prepare for everything. And we didn't expect COVID to go, massive. We knew that we could do really good growth, but we didn't expect COVID to sort of be quite so incredible for sales. But the positive thing was we had sort of 4 to 5 months of time where we could set up the right 3PLs, make sure the right systems were in place, put the right customer services modules in place so that we could kind of automate everything. And it meant that actually scaling from, I think it was something like £300,000 one year up to about 8 million the year after,
Wow.
was actually possible. And it didn't make me any more receding than I already was.
Mm. Wow. So yeah, I mean, getting through COVID and surviving is a success in itself. How what was the biggest learning you've had since owning a business?
I think doing the job right first time.
Mm.
Um, I think everyone has to wing it occasionally. But ultimately, if there's something really fundamental like an integration or something which should be automated but shouldn't be, just doing it right the first time. And then actually just to do a second one, just getting the right staff on board, getting them all in the right mindset, making sure that they know what their objectives are and doing everything you possibly can to help and support them hit those objectives.
Brilliant. You mentioned automation. I love the mantra, um, systemize routine,
Mm.
humanize exceptions. Yeah.
I like that too. Yeah.
Great. You talked about the team. You seem to have a great team on board. How do you go about recruiting? What criteria do you use to attract the right people for the business?
We're a northeast based business, so we're based in Newcastle. Being honest, the talent pool in the northeast isn't massive. It's certainly anything but what you can get in Manchester and London. So it means that you do certainly have to work a lot harder to find those good individuals. We work through a multitude of different ways. We do work with recruiters, but then we also advertise ourselves. We like to feel that people who come to us directly, they're quite hungry, and having that sort of hunger and desire to sort of go out and find a job. So it's certainly something that both Dan and myself and Sharon find very, very attractive, and we've got some really good staff for it. And to be honest, in the way that the world is nowadays, I think you almost need to have every plate spinning. To find those right people. You're going to win on some and you're going to lose on others, but ultimately, utilizing all the different ways that you can recruit people, whether that's LinkedIn or recruitment, even posting organically. It's a very small network in the Northeast, so you can even do it on your own social channels. It can ultimately end up, with you finding the right people.
Is there so one of the values I heard there was people who are hungry. Is there any other value that makes up your culture and the people you're looking for?
I've only recently learned this one, but I think knowing what good looks like. I'd like to believe that I know what good looks like. And I think that's something that's very important for anyone that we bring on, moving forwards. It's certainly something that we use in all of our new arguments, because knowing what good looks like actually skips a lot of the stuff. It actually just means that we have a clear direction that we're going, and that everyone kind of can vision that without it having to be spelt out. So knowing what good looks like, and just being proactive. The world is challenging. Retail is very, very challenging, and I think enabling people to be proactive is what we need to do as the owners of the business, but also empowering these people so that they're proactive on their own merit.
So not to be told what to do every time, but
yeah. Well, we kind of want them to tell us what we should be doing.
Yeah, exactly. What are your aspirations for the business for the next 5 years?
Our aspirations at the moment is both grow B2B and D2C. I think our B2B side of the business is the greatest opportunity. We've recently been doing some exhibitions in Vegas, in Germany, in Cologne. Amazing feedback on some of our innovative products, which are like the foam portable hot tubs. We call them, they ultimately are the world's most sustainable portable hot tubs. We've had fantastic feedback from some really big retailers and distributors. So our plan is to basically scale the business, enable and transition the brand from and it's kind of the same, you know, and I don't want to use the sort of same analogy, but ultimately when you say the word Amazon nowadays, it gets to a point where no one actually thinks of the rainforest. They think of the online giant. And you know, we kind of want to get to that point with Wave, where as a brand we get to such a strength point of view that people say Wave, and you know, they might start thinking of spas, and you know, the paddle boards, rather than actually the physical waves, especially people who are interested in that sector. So that's our aspirations, and the way to do that is going to be getting, you know, the right staff on board, and you know, working with the existing staff that we've got, and very tactically, and you know, being very calculative in the way that we target certain sectors, so that we have a clear direction, without trying to take on too much. So yeah, so for an example on that is next year our biggest opportunity is for sure is growing the B2B in Europe, and we're just taking on a sales director to help facilitate that.
Okay, so your focus is going to be Europe in your growth plans. Okay, so you are UK, USA, Europe. Have you got plans to go to other countries, continents?
Well, we have had a dabble in Australia. We did pull back ultimately just because it wasn't being given the time and resource it probably needed.
Yes.
There are massive opportunities in Asia as well. So, and you know, South America. So, ultimately, actually, ultimately through working some of the distributors in America, that can lead to sort of South America ultimately. So there's a few of those sort of going on in the pipeline. But again, we're trying to be sort of more focused on, you know, bigger opportunities. You know, we call them grade one partners, who have the ability to help us scale, and who also love and want our products. You know, that's really important to us. You know, we don't want to get to a point where, and you see this with a lot of brands, where it ultimately becomes a race to the bottom because you've over distributed your product. We want to keep, you know, tight control on it, ensure that there's price integrity.
Yes.
And you know, enable us to grow seasonally without the market getting saturated with stock.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, very ambitious plans in terms of branding and what you want to be known for. So yeah, brilliant. What's been the biggest challenge you had to overcome since you started the business?
I would say supply chain issues, because ultimately sometimes you're not in control of those. You know, e-commerce, you know, I understand that. You know, finance, that sort of side, Dan, you know, very, very on it. And you know, sourcing from China, we know how to do it, or sourcing from wherever. However, it's kind of when things are taken out of control. An example of that was in COVID, where, for example, 5-10 containers, you know, they might end up being 30 days later than anticipated.
Yes.
Very, very challenging. You know, a lot of distraught customers. You know, even when you built in a 3-week extra buffer, and then they turn up sort of 7 weeks late, you know, it can just allude to a lot of sort of disappointment, negativity. So I'd say the biggest challenge is supply chain. However, looking at the other way around, you know, this year we've had a really phenomenal season in the UK, all things considered, especially considering there's been an energy crisis, which sort of put people off hot tubs, certainly for a sort of 6 to 12 month period. However, next year, you know, our suppliers, you know, they've agreed to hold stock for us. You know, it should mean that we can, you know, work on a little bit more of a dynamic stock approach where we can do just in time. And it, you know, it means, you know, we're sort of future-proofing the business. And ultimately, our long-term aspirations is to get away from pre-order and not have the requirement of doing any pre-order sales anymore.
Yeah. And you mentioned the shipping from China and the delays, which cause havoc, but also the shipping prices, right? They treble and quadruple.
That was one of the biggest challenges as well. You know, those prices escalated, but we'd already sold the goods.
Yeah.
So from a margin point of view, you know, it's not like we could go back to the customer and say, well, our shipping rates have gone up. So it really hurt us. It was crippling, to be honest. And what's frustrating at the moment is shipping containers, you know, they did drop back down, but you know, they're back up again. You know, they're heading in a negative sort of direction.
Yes.
So we'll just have to see how that goes. You know, we might have to get very tactical in the way that we bring goods in. And so we'll just have to see how that pans out.
Yes.
But I know Dan certainly. I wasn't very familiar with the price of shipping. But Dan, my business partner, specialist from China, he said he's never seen such a turbulent time ever.
Yeah.
From shipping containers going up and down, and it's very very unprecedented.
Yeah, I was talking to a business owner who imports from China quite a lot, and he was telling me about that. So it's affected everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is. It is.
Now, what advice will you give to your 18-year-old self?
Oh, I would have made the jump sooner.
Brilliant.
From yeah, 100%. I still think it's really important to do your time somewhere.
Mhm.
I think that's essential. I was really, really fortunate in the fact that I surrounded myself and networked myself with everyone and anyone who could basically help and teach me. And that wasn't for Wave. This is pre-Wave. This is when I worked at Jules B. Because I genuinely was really hungry to learn and I wanted to understand everything. And I built that network up. But I probably should have thought about going down the more sort of entrepreneurial route sooner.
Mm. That's a great one. I get often contacted by people who are thinking of setting up a business, and they are sitting on the French and not quite, the fear of letting go a salary. And you
Mhm.
mentioned, you had your full-time job and you started with Dan, this business, until you say, why, this business has grown enough to
Yeah.
quit jobs. And that's a great way of doing it.
That's the way to do it. Anyone who says I don't have time, then they're not cut out for it.
Correct.
You have to make time.
Yeah.
You have to have that want and desire to go above and beyond and drive your wife insane for a couple of evenings because you have to fix hot tubs as I did.
Yeah.
So yeah, find time. And then I also, I'm a bit of a believer in fate.
Yeah.
And if everything sort of aligns correctly,
Yes.
you should see that opportunity. And you should see the inklings or the sparks of something that's coming through. And then you just need to focus on the most important parts of it, not getting confused with all the sort of the waffle that can come around. Or I like to call it focusing on the prime elements.
Mm.
Um, and that will ultimately lead you in the right direction. And if it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
Yes. So you mentioned the word faith, and also you have that conviction inside, right? You see the opportunity, and not everything is worked out. There are some uncertainties and a bit of fear, but you have an inner conviction, and that's what that conviction is what makes you, go for it, right?
100%. You just feel it. You know when you've got something. You know when there's an opportunity there.
Yes.
I also think when you use the products yourself, and I've got young children. I basically designed these foam hot tubs for myself and the children ultimately, and you can see the sort of the joy and happiness it brings to them.
Yes.
And you also know that there aren't products like that out there already. So you have a USP, you have a point of difference. So that's if that doesn't give you conviction, I don't know what would.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Now, are you a sailing youth champion?
We did win the RS 200 youth championship a long time ago. I mean, I think we were 18.
Okay.
But yeah, no, me and one of my best friends called Josh, we used to do a lot of sailing,
Yes.
a lot of dinghy sailing, and eventually did a little bit in the 49ers as well. But it was just ultimately a really good way of socializing, having fun, driving any excuse to drive around the UK and party, to be honest. And then you also sailed pretty heavily, and we were very fortunate. We got sponsored by Josh's parents' business, Trident UK, and I managed to secure us some sponsorship from Northern Rock, that was the Northeast Bank.
Yes. I saw that on your LinkedIn, so I better ask. So brilliant. I've got a friend who sailed the Atlantic. I
Right.
think
Okay.
it took him 39 days, something like that. Yeah.
Wow.
And they
Big boat
capsized.
stuff.
They capsized.
Oh God. Well, I'm always a big fan, and I suppose maybe this is one of the reasons we did paddleboarding. Is I like to stay on top of the water.
Exactly. Exactly.
I try to keep out of it if I can.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I love water sports. Love do a lot of kite surfing, hydrofoiling as well. We're probably going to be bringing a hydrofoiling range
Wow.
to the wave side. probably because I love it rather than it being a commercial opportunity. However, it does broaden our offering, and makes us more of a sort of a significant player in the market, in the ISOPs.
Yeah, excellent. Now, tell me, Tom, do you have a favorite book?
Yes, it's the Nike story. So Nike's Shoe Dog. It's just a fabulous journey that he went on, of ups and downs, challenges, supplier issues, balancing jobs. It's everything that could have gone on in there has happened. And then I think the nice thing about it is you also you hear about some of the ideas which are quite sort of fresh. They literally were game-changing, groundbreaking in certain approaches, whether led by them or led by their partners. So it's a very, very inspiring book, and just a really enjoyable read at the same time.
It is. I love his trips to Japan and dealing with the Japanese suppliers, and also paying Jordan, paying the fine of £5,000 for having the trainers not complying with the. I loved it,
very disruptive. Really disruptive, really clever, and just an amazing story, and a good movie as well now.
The movie is very good as well. Okay, and if you could choose a superpower, what would it be?
Oh, that's a really good one. I think it would be to see into the future, because that would give you the cheat sheet to life, and you could see what would happen. And if we had to narrow it down, see into the future, into products, and probably steal that product and bring it back. So I think that would be fun. That would make it. I think that would make it really, really interesting.
And that would solve all your supply chain issues.
100%.
The prices are going to rise.
It would certainly give us the upper hand.
Definitely. And finally, if you could have a day in the life of, who would that be?
I think it would be Richard Branson in his early years, just because he's very disruptive. It doesn't seem to matter what challenge he goes through. He always seems to come out on top, which is very, very clever. His attitude's really refreshing. He's very dyslexic, as am I, so it could be, a lot of his ideas are sort of visionary, and he always seems to have an amazing team to help and support and implement it. So I mean, there's a lot of learnings that we try and take on board at Wave from Virgin, because it's just such a fabulous brand, and they're still doing stuff. They're still going into new market areas. Still expanding the brand, and it's quite incredible. It's
a great brand he's created, and he's a great visionary. I think it was him who said, if your goal is not scary, it's not a goal, it's a task. I
agree with that.
I like that. Brilliant. Well, Tom, it's been a real pleasure having you on board, and for joining us at Business Spotlight series and sharing your experience and wisdom with us today. Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure. Lovely to meet you.
Thank you.